to aefTV. I am Wandi Swandenito. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, Irene Muloni. Thank you for joining us, Minister.
Pleasure.
Minister, let's start with opportunities. What opportunities currently exist in Uganda in the power sector?
Uganda is one of the countries in the Eastern African part of Africa. It is in the development phase, and therefore plenty of opportunities exist. Power is a prime mover of any economy, and so we recognize that if we are going to promote industrialization, value addition, job creation, wealth creation, then we must have adequate electricity supply to drive the economy. We are endowed with plenty of renewable energy sources, right from hydro, where the longest river in the world starts its journey from Uganda up to the Mediterranean Sea. And so we have potential along the River Nile, where we have large hydro power stations, and we're also developing more large hydro power. We have plenty of solar because the equator strides Uganda. And so we have already 50 megawatts of on-grid solar, but we've also divided the country into regions so that people can invest in off-grid and mini-grids. We have the Western Rift Valley runs on the western part of the country, so we have geothermal potential. We have biomass by the sugar factories across the country. We are also planning for nuclear power as the future energy because of the developments and the demand for huge energy supplies. As part of the energy security, we have thermal power. And so all these present opportunities for the investors to come and join us. But also on the thermal power, we have oil and gas. We've confirmed commercial reserves in the country, 6 billion barrels of oil. We are now preparing for production, and already we have 3 international companies, Tullow Oil, Total E&P, and CNOOC, that are preparing for production. And commercializing these oil resources, we are going to construct a refinery where we are going to add value, and we already have a consortium that is carrying out studies for the refinery, but we're also going to construct a crude export pipeline. Possibly it's going to be one of the longest heated crude export pipeline in the world, 1,443 kilometers from Hoima to Tanga to access the international market. And so looking at all these are huge projects which require investment. The investment, Uganda as a country may not have adequate resources to go solo and invest by itself. And therefore, we have created an enabling environment to attract the private sector to come and invest into the country. So we have the policies in place, we have the laws in place, we have the regulation in place, we have institutions in place, and all we are doing is welcoming you to come and invest in Uganda in the energy sector.
Minister, you've given us a broad picture of the energy landscape and the potential in Uganda. What does the energy mix currently look like in Uganda, and what is government's vision in developing it for the next coming years?
As I told you earlier, Uganda is referred to as the Pearl of Africa because of its natural beauty and the abundant renewable energy sources. So right now, with the power that is already developed, over 91% is renewable energy. I told you about the large hydros along the River Nile. I've told you about solar. I've told you about biomass. And now we are planning for other renewable energy sources to increase the capacity. And of course, for the long term, we have nuclear power that we are planning for. Once we exhaust all the potentials along the River Nile, we try to promote the solar on wide scale. We're also looking at nuclear for energy for the future. And so, in terms of renewable energy resource, we are not complaining, you know. Having over 91% renewable is very, very exciting, and we are blessed as a country. And so we are moving in that direction, exploiting the renewable energy resources to make sure that we are able to support industrialization and value addition across the country. And that opens opportunities for the private sector to come and invest in our country.
So what is the government's timeline in completing all these renewable projects?
We've already had a 250 megawatt privately developed hydropower station, Bujagali. It's already operational. Early this year in March, we commissioned 183 megawatts of hydropower. That one is government financed through loans, concessional loans. We have a 600 megawatt hydropower, which is under construction. It's going to be commissioned end of this year. We have lined up projects which are under development, where feasibility studies have been carried for 840 megawatts, again along the River Nile. That is, feasibility studies have been completed, and we are now looking for the financing mechanism so that they can be developed, and that is where now the private sector. There is already a company that carried out the feasibility study, and it's now exploring the financing model under a build, own, operate, transfer model so that that project can be built. It will be the biggest if it comes online. We also have another project, Oriang, about 400 megawatts under feasibility studies along the River Nile. We have another one called Chiba, about 300 megawatts, undergoing feasibility study. We have a third one, Uhuru, about 350 megawatts, undergoing feasibility study. We have small hydros across the country because of the terrain, mountainous, so we have many small rivers across the country. All these are undergoing development. About 80 megawatts have already been commissioned. A further 80 megawatts is under construction, and in the next 2 to 3 years, it should also be commissioned. I told you about the solar. We have 50 megawatts of solar on the grid, and we are still attracting more investors to come and get solar off the grid, because only about 27% of the population has access to electricity. So you can see there's a very huge gap that requires electrification, meaning those are opportunities for the private sector to come and choose among the spectrum of the renewable energy sources that we have, so that we can fill the gap and increase access of electricity throughout the country. We've embarked on a number of projects of increasing access by extending the transmission and distribution networks. These provide opportunity for investment so that we can reach out to the rural areas, the rural masses, and also about 25 industrial parks are being developed. These are going to extend electricity and the industrial services for value addition across the country, and therefore create jobs, but also consume the power that we are generating. And as I said, for the future, we are planning for nuclear power. We already have a plan. We are developing capacity. We are working hand in hand with the International Atomic Energy Agency, guiding us to develop nuclear power for peaceful purposes. And so the energy for the future, in the next 10 to 15 years, we see us having the first plant of nuclear power. And then biomass. We have the factories that are manufacturing sugar, generating electricity from the byproducts of biomass, and for use for themselves, but the excess is sold onto the grid. And so we are trying to tap into the modern technologies which are efficient, so that we can harness the renewable energy sources that we have in the country.
Minister, to build a strong power sector, you need skilled labor. So how is the government going to make sure that they acquire skilled labor or develop labor that's needed for these projects?
Indeed, skilled labor is very important, especially in the energy sector being a technical area. But you also recognize that with the partnerships that we have with the private sector, the investors, the development partners, the government of Uganda has been developing capacity for its own people to be able to meaningfully involve itself in the energy sector, in managing, in handling, in operating, coupled with the support that we get from the development partners, but also the private sector when it brings on board skilled manpower to train and transfer technology, but also provide training. So the issue of training is very critical for us, capacity building for the local indigenous people, so that areas of national content are part and parcel of the development process, and we will continue to build that capacity.
Minister, going back to why you're here, why is it important for you to be here, to represent the Uganda government?
The Africa Energy Forum is a fantastic opportunity where we converge as the governments and the private sector with the development partners to take stock of what is happening in the region, the plans that we have in each of the countries in ensuring that we are able to tap into the renewable energy sources across the region so that we can transform our countries and better the lives of our people. It's a fantastic opportunity as a meeting place for networking, for taking stock, for updating ourselves and also the region of the developments that are going on in the region, for sharing the opportunities. You know, it's really an opportunity for you to share and project what opportunities you have in the country. For the very many investors who are here, it's a meeting place, it's a networking place, it's a place for looking for potential projects. It's a place where you're able to market the opportunities that you have in the country. And it's a pleasure for me to be here, to participate and be part of this community.
And finally, what is your key message to prospective investors?
You're most welcome to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. This is a country that has been blessed by God with abundant renewable energy sources. The longest river in the world starts its journey in Uganda. The equator strives Uganda, so plenty of sunshine, plenty of water for power generation. We have a young, skilled, dynamic population, and therefore in terms of labor for projects, we have at least a source where you are going to tailor to meet your needs. And of course, the investment environment has been created. The country is peaceful, it is secure, it guarantees you a double-digit return on your investment, and the opportunities are immense because the current 27% of the population that is having an electricity connection is far from what we expect, and therefore we are striving to make sure that we attract more investment so that you join us and you become part of that process where we are going to electrify the country, and you will definitely earn a return on your investment. The people of Uganda are very warm and receptive. And with all the policies, the laws, the regulations, and the institutions in place, Uganda is ready for business. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Minister, for joining us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for watching aefTV. We'll leave it there for now.